Hey, Instagram. So this 9/13 polymeter post has gone, I guess, a little viral. It's getting a lot of attention, and which is a lot of fun. And I'm getting a lot of questions. What am I thinking when I'm doing this? How am I doing it? What meter is it in? So I'm going to just explain my process and how I put these things together. This is just one way to do it. One of the cool things about music, and particularly rhythm and the mathematics of music, is there are dozens and dozens of correct answers. My way is not necessarily the right way. It's just the way I do these things. So I first start with just two numbers, essentially a grouping, and I picked 9 and 13. The entire idea of a polymeter, in my opinion, or the way that I've learned them, is that it's all based on a constant subdivision. No time signature here. We're just talking a subdivision. And given the speed, most people would probably interpret that around 16th notes. So we could say that a grouping of 9 and a grouping of 13 could also equate one measure of 9/16 and one measure of 13/16. In the groupings, so I have a grouping of 9, a grouping of 13, and if you multiply them together, it's 117. This entire sequence is 117 subdivisions. So groupings of 9 and 13 are going to repeat each other for 117 subdivisions. So for the 9, for the right hand, what I'm doing is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The left is the exact same 9 pattern with an extra 3 tagged on. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Those are the notes of the grouping that I'm playing. And then to sort of really accent, no pun intended, accent the beginning of each grouping, I'm accenting the first note. So, and then the left hand. That's the grouping, 9, 13. A bar of 9/16, a bar of 13/16, if you want to think of it that way. What I do next is I will chart these I just use Keynote, the Apple program Keynote, or like PowerPoint on Windows. And I just graph out a bunch of lines evenly spaced, and then I put little shapes on representing the notes played. But what this allows me to do is visually see the different combinations that are occurring between the hands. And really, there's only 4 different possibilities that the hands are going to be doing. The right hand is going to be playing and the left isn't. The left is going to be playing and the right isn't. They're both going to be playing, or they're both not going to be playing. That's it. That's the coordination. And that's ultimately all these things are. It's one giant coordination exercise. So when working out the coordination between the hands, what starts to emerge are a bunch of little rudiment cells, if you will, and variations upon rudiments. So the first little cell in that graphic is just the first 9 subdivisions. The next little grouping of notes played is based on 2 paradiddles. Now, it's not just 2 paradiddles. There's a flam, and when I say flam in this context, I mean like double stop, or playing perfectly together, or as close as we can. So we have 2 paradiddles, but there's a flam on the first note and a flam on each diddle of the paradiddle. So if we string those first 2 segments together, we start to see these little rudimental things emerge. I'm not going to pick out every single one. We'd be here for hours. But there's another little sequence in here that's a series of flam accents and flam taps. So it's a nice little rudimental phrase, if you will, just stringing some flam accents, flam taps together, and variations of such. Another little thing that happens a lot in this one are 3s, groupings of 3, but where they overlap 2 notes. So right hand, both, left, or left, both, right. It's a kind of a little tricky thing. So I had to spend some time working on that little thing. But really, it's just, the technique shouldn't be very difficult. It's just 3, 3. But layering them in such a way is a little, the coordination's a little tricky. Basically, this entire thing is paradiddles, flam accents, flam taps, and then variations upon that. Adding flams in a paradiddle, things like that. Now, once I get the coordination down, then I start working on the orchestration. And in the graphic, I color-coded black, red, and gray for the different zones on the pad. That is kind of meticulous. That I go kind of every subdivision, adding one more subdivision, adding a couple. And then what starts to happen is I'm no longer thinking of the rudiments. I actually do start to hear the larger polymeter. That's the process. So that's how I get there. And so if I first try to demonstrate it on one zone of the pad, it's going to sound kind of like a rudimental sequence, if you will. So I would work that out for a day or two, get the coordination down, and then start to string together the orchestration bit. So that's the process. That's how I work this out. I don't really see these as time signatures. I just see them as layers of different groupings. If you were to transcribe this, say you put it in 9/16, that would mean you would have a bar of 9/16 for one hand repeating over and over and over, and then the 13 would go over the bar line, several times, and eventually, it would line back up. Same if you were to put it in 13/16. The 13/16 would repeat every bar, and then the 9/16 would, skate over the bar line, and eventually they would line up together. The reason I don't really interpret it that way is time signatures lock you to one frame, if you will. So if we were locking, which is fine for 99.9% of music, these polymeter things they are a little bit ridiculous. So, but they're fun to work out. Locking yourself into 9/16, and then for me, seeing notation in that makes me try to latch to the 9 downbeat, and really I'm moving around. My brain is going all which way with these things, and so in my opinion, traditional notation doesn't. I'm going to contradict what I said at the beginning. Of course, traditional notation, it's all correct. It all can be mathematically correct. But in my opinion, traditional notation with these sort of does a disservice of what is actually happening. If any of you have done MIDI piano roll view, where it's literally the subdivision in like squares, it's like graph paper. You're filling in notes that you want played in a MIDI piano roll. That's exactly what I'm doing with the graphic. And that's how I see this type of thing. It's literally just a subdivision moving along and a combination of right, left, together, or nothing. So I hope that maybe clears it up. Maybe I made it more confusing. I don't know. But that's the process that I use. And thanks to all the new followers that are come to check this stuff out. All right, that does it. Thanks a lot.